Mark, reflecting on badminton, which was your favourite badminton?
Well, I guess my favourite badminton has to be my very first one, which was 1980. For years I'd sort of read about badminton and seen videos of badminton and all the rest of it, but to actually have a horse to end up going there was something really special. And it was all a fairly amateur show for me back then. We arrived in an old horse box and stayed in a caravan there, and everything was. And Andrew Nicholson, who was over, and he helped me with the horse there. So even being there in 1980 was just something really quite surreal, really. And then to end up winning the jolly thing was just unbelievable.
And winning it again in 2011, how was that different to winning it the first time?
Well, winning it in 2011 was pretty special as well, because I'd retired from the sport in 2000 and spent 8 years away and came back in 2008. And the sport had moved on a lot since I'd retired. It had gone from long format to short format. I didn't know whether I could still be competitive. I was very fortunate that I had the backing of New Zealand Bloodstock, and they bought me a couple of really nice horses, and one of them was Land Vision. And he went to badminton in 2011 as a relatively inexperienced 10-year-old, and came out the winner. And so for me, all those years after I'd first won it, and having had 8 years off, to come back and being able to win at the very top level was a huge thrill.
And coming to badminton now with two horses and all this experience behind you, is it any easier now?
I don't think it's any easier, no, but it's still just as exciting, and that's the wonderful thing. That's the reason I'm still doing it. We're sort of 2 weeks out from badminton right now, and you're sort of almost a little bit reluctant to get excited about it in case something goes wrong with any of the horses, because it can do. But when you get to loading up that lorry and finally driving into badminton, and you realise that you're there again for another year, it's still just as exciting as the first time.
Just reflecting on previous badminton, for example, losing your stirrup, what was going through your head when that stirrup went?
Yeah, well, that was pretty unreal. It was on a horse called Bertie Blunt when I lost my stirrup. It happened fairly early on in the course, at the I think it was the Mirage Pond, and I jumped in there. It was a bit of a drop and landed, and as I landed, I felt the stirrup go, and I looked down, and I saw it swinging on the end of the stirrup leather, and I didn't know what to do at that stage, and so I thought, well, I'll just jump the next fence, get over that, and then I'll have a rethink. And the next fence happened to be the Vicarage V, which was a pretty enormous fence. But anyway, we got over that, and then I just decided, well, I'll just keep going for as long as I can. And as I was galloping along, I tried to sort of figure out the most comfortable way for me and hopefully the most comfortable way for the horse without sort of thumping on his back too much. And I honestly thought, at some point I'm probably going to have to pull up. But we just kept going. And I remember galloping down to the lake, which is, one of the biggest water fences anywhere in the world. Huge crowds everywhere. And I almost started laughing to myself. I thought, this is just ridiculous. Here I am galloping down to one of the biggest fences in the world, and I've only got one stirrup. But anyway, we got through that, and we kept going, and I actually managed to finish the course inside the time, which was remarkable. But I was a bit stiff the next day.
Another formidable cross-country performance was when you took on a catch ride, Horton Point. Was there an inner confidence? How did you prepare that horse when you were warming up cross country, for example?
Well, the year I rode Horton Point, the rider Lynn Bevan had broken a collarbone the weekend before, and so I got the call at the last minute, and I only sat on the horse for the first time on the Tuesday of Badminton. But by that stage I'd ridden a lot of different horses around Badminton, and I'd ridden a few catch ride horses at top level, and he was a very experienced horse, and he was beautifully trained. And what I used to do was, when I got on these catch rides, was you'd immediately sort of think, well, this horse is like whatever horse that I've ridden before, and it's not about trying to make them go the way you want. It's about adjusting to let them go the way they want. And I knew he was a very good jumper. I knew he was very capable. It was slightly alarming when I think I was number one to go. That you're going out there on a strange horse over a course that nobody else has jumped before. But I was quite young then. I was probably a bit braver than I am now, and I had confidence. I knew the horse, and that I'd seen him around for quite a few years, and I was happy to get on and go. And of course, we had the steeplechase in those days to warm up, and I clearly remember I think it was the very first fence in the steeplechase. We had a bit of a disagreement about where we should take off, and I think we ploughed through the fence. But after that, I think I probably said, "Righto, mate, it's over to you. You know what you're doing." And I just sat and steered. But he gave me a fantastic ride around a very big track this year. And again, he finished. He wasn't a fast horse, but he finished just inside the time, and went on to win the competition.
Now, the nature of cross-country's changed quite a bit since you were first riding at Badminton. Do you think it requires you as a rider to have kind of more guts and determination than back then?
It's very different nowadays. I mean, it's, for whatever reason, it seems you have to ride faster earlier over the courses these days. I remember, like in the long format days, you always used to think, well, you could almost be 20 seconds down at the midway, at halfway, and you could gallop and catch up on the way home. Nowadays, you just can't afford to do that. You've got to be sort of on your minute markers all the way. Sort of back then in the 80s and early 90s, there was much more big, straightforward fences, and we had technical fences as well. But today's courses seem to be maybe a bit trickier. There's a lot of narrow fences, a lot of angle fences. And it takes the horses longer to get used to and confident jumping those. Like, we used to take horses to Badminton Burley when they were sort of 8 years old. I mean, you wouldn't think about doing that now. The horses need to be more mature, have more mileage before they're ready to take on those 4-star questions. I think there's a slight trend nowadays going back towards slightly more old-fashioned courses, and it'll be very, very interesting to see Eric Winter's course at Badminton this year. From what I've seen of the preview, it looks like it's more of an old-fashioned type of course. But every time we go to Badminton, you just never know what to expect.
Do you think then that would turn people away from the more modern event horse, the warm blood, the foreign horses, and back in the direction of thoroughbreds again?
I don't know. I think people, the modern sport horse, quite a lot of them have quite a bit of thoroughbred. I think you probably need a bit of warm blood somewhere that gives them that bit more jump, a bit more movement. Having said that, if the FEI gets its way and the World Championships becomes 3-star, the Olympics is becoming 3-star, these 4-star championships, how much longer have they got? I don't know. So maybe we'll be looking at different types of horses again.
Can you tell us any funny badminton anecdotes?
Well, back in my very first Badminton, it wasn't funny at the time, but it is quite funny afterwards. After the cross-country, we decided to give my horse a nice hot bran mash, and they had this old boiler there, gas boiler, and I was trying to light it underneath, and nothing was happening. So I very stupidly put my face down underneath and lit the match, and suddenly it went whoosh and took all my eyebrows and my eyelashes off. And I was lucky to get away with just that, I think. But there was this horrible smell of burning hair and flesh for a while.
Now, there have been plenty of great moments in your career, but what about the low points?
Yeah, well, unfortunately, for every high there's probably an equal low, and I've had a few of those, some of them at Badminton. I had an awful time one year when we lost Face the Music, and he slipped jumping the arrowhead fence and broke his leg, and that was probably one of the worst moments in my eventing career. I then had to sort of go back, and I had another horse, Alfred the Great, to ride later in the day, and I sort of ummed and ahed whether I should do that or not, but decided that it was probably better to get back on the horse and do it again, and I did, and he ended up finishing 5th, which was great. But yeah, no, there's been some disappointing times, but like I say, for every high there's a low, and for every low there's hopefully a high as well.
Just reflecting on Rio last year, I mean, that must have been a big blow to you.
Yeah, Rio last year was not one of my favourite moments. Went there individually and as a team, thinking that we would come home with at least some sort of medal, and certainly over there, what went wrong, or what could possibly go wrong, did go wrong. First of all, we lost Jock Paget's horse with a freak accident in the stable. Then Tim Price's horse slipped on the cross country and fell over, and he was eliminated. All the horses did below par dressage and below their personal best, but still, after the remaining 3 of us managed to claw our way back into silver medal position, and we were sitting on 3 good jumpers going into the show jumping, so we had every reason to feel reasonably confident. And in fact, by the time in the team jumping, by the time I went in, with what had happened before, I had the relative comfort of having 2 rails in hand and still winning the gold medal. And then Leonidas, for whatever reason, decided that this wasn't going to happen, and he just got himself really wound up. I didn't ride him the morning of the competition of the show jumping day, because I thought, well, he's done a lot of work the day before, and so I want to keep him a bit fresh. But when I got on him to warm up for the show jumping, it was like I hadn't ridden him for a week. He was just really fit and well out there. And basically by the time he went in the ring, he was already pretty wound up. And when they're like that, there's absolutely nothing you can do. And he jumped the first few okay, and then he turned to go down the combination and saw something in the distance, and his head went up and his back went stiff, and that was it. And we came out with 4 rails down, and not only had we lost the gold medal, but we'd lost the silver and bronze as well, and also any chance of an individual for myself. So it was certainly, from a results point of view, one of the low points of my career.
And looking ahead, is Tokyo on the radar?
Tokyo is in a few years' time, yes. Whether I'm there or not, I don't know.
Would you say that your training philosophy has changed over the years?
I don't know whether it's changed. It's probably been tweaked a bit. We don't have the roads and tracks and steeplechase now. So, although I still like to give my horses plenty of long, slow work and trotting hills and all that sort of thing, we probably don't do as much as we used to. Having trained racehorses for a few years in New Zealand, I maybe sort of train them a little bit different now. But it depends on the horse too. Like, some horses need more fast work, some horses need less fast work. Thicker-winded horses maybe have to gallop a bit more. So I try and sort of tailor the preparation for each horse.
And just looking ahead to Badminton, tell us what you've got going there and what your expectations are.
Well, this year at Badminton, I've got my two old boys, NZB Campino, who's 15 now, although this is only the second time he's been to Badminton, and the first time he unceremoniously dumped me on top of a fence. But he's got good form he was placed at Burley last year, he's been placed at Poe, he's been placed in Lemoulin, and he feels as good as ever, and he's a fun horse to ride, and he could be very competitive. And the other one, of course, is my Rio horse Leonidas. This is his, I think, 4th time at Badminton. He was 4th last year, he was I think 5th the year before, so maybe if we keep going up the places, if we keep going long enough, we might get there. But he's in very good form. He was 2nd at Belton in the CIC a couple of weeks ago. If he's relaxed in the dressage, he's capable of doing a very good test, and then after that he's touch wood, he's a very sound horse cross country and fast, and normally a good show jumper.
Now you're in incredible shape for your age, but how do you, age 61, how do you stay in tip-top condition yourself?
Well, I ride a lot, and that helps keeping me in shape, but I also do quite a lot of stretching and do yoga. I also swim when I've got the chance. And my wife, Carolyn, is very good at looking after me and feeding me correctly, and making sure that I don't go off the beaten track too much. So, yeah.
The yoga bit, is that, it's obviously primarily physical, but is it sort of the spiritual side as well?
I actually do quite enjoy the spiritual side of it as well. I find it very relaxing. Most of us tend to sort of hold our breath a bit, so breathing properly is very important. But I mean, I find, well, I first took it up years ago when I was sort of, driving long distances in the lorry, and I'd get out of the lorry and I could hardly move. I was so stiff. And then I found that with yoga, I was much better, and so I've kept doing it ever since.